should have new mailboxes on board. And at the same time, we noticed the building numbers needed some replacement, so that's in the works as well. Application, I guess, but sure, longer life. For someone's, oh yeah, the ones we're using currently. I mean, they have 10, 15 years.
Approval of minutes from the regular meeting October 20th.
Second.
Second. Third. All in favor, say aye.
So there's two articles in your board packet this month. It's called Improving Utilization of the Choice Voucher Program. And this one sort of essentially goes through all that we know to be true about Section 8 in terms of the gap between voucher issuance and budget utilization. It talks about the tightening housing market. It talks about voucher utilization and the impact that that has on future year fundings. Funding, it talks about the instability of the program because it's not an entitlement program, but rather a program that's subject to annual budget authority from Congress. So oftentimes we could be 3, 4, 5, 6 months into the year before we know what we actually will have in the way of budget authority, and it's very hard to plan in terms of vouchers because you don't want to exceed your budget authority. We don't know where it is until halfway through the year. So there's some great information in there, and I would welcome any questions on it. I gave you the executive summary, which I think is the important. They list not just the current situation, but maybe it's not numbered. It's not numbered.
Up in the left hand, I think it's up in the left hand corner. Whoever you want, give it. One for people.
Oh, okay. I must have a numbered version. I tried it before I got copied. The second one is an hour report on the draft that was leaked on the work requirement and term limit proposed rule. So, not great news there. As with so many things, the pendulum is swung in one direction, can't seem to get. Term maxes. Probably the biggest factor that won't make a lot of sense for us and for many housing authorities is that the overwhelming majority of our tenants can't work. They're either elderly or disabled. So we're not quite sure what the impact is going to be, particularly on the housing choice voucher program, where you could have more clients able to work. Again, this is just a draft. Share it with you because it's on the horizon.
You want letters, not
Not quite.
we. Is it?
That's it.
That's it. Consent agenda. Any motion for the consent agenda? Session. All in favor, say aye. CEO report.
So, just very briefly, our attorney has made an offer through the Vermont Human Rights Commission to settle this matter. We have not heard back from them. Moving on to the property casualty liability insurance. Sarah.
Doesn't like us.
Here.
Moving on to the property casualty liability insurance update. I guess, we can go through this in terms of line by line, but I think the most important thing is that we managed to keep our costs down across the board with some minor increases. Probably there's minor increases in cybersecurity. Actually, that's probably one of the biggest increases because of the primary we had last year. And we're still trying to finalize workers' comp for the planning committee, expect to go down. So last year's expiring premiums were 157,375, and the renewal premiums are 164. Not bad year for insurance.
Is the property being adjusted?
Thank you. Yeah, we did a replacement cost analysis prior to sort of signing of the outline. That we could cover it with our insurance and support match with the renewal the insurance. Just a reminder, a lot of the Hickory Street numbers aren't necessarily reflected on this report because of the separate picture, et cetera. Moving on to the Templewood Court electrical upgrades. We did another independent cost estimate for the project prior to what I have to bid for a construction manager. As you may recall, our original cost estimate of 3 years ago came in at just over 475. The low bidder was 750,000, 800,000. So we put the project on the back burner until we secure some more funds. We did in fact do that through Congresswoman Balance. Called and received 650,000 the form of congressionally delegated spending, and then subsequently we secured another 300,000 from the AJR Group Loss Prevention Fund. The independent cost estimate performed by Russell's came in at 1.5 million. So we have a gap again, and it just seems to get worse every time we put it up. And every time we do an independent cost estimate. So by way of trying to fill that gap, submitted I submitted an application to the Vermont Community Development Program, more commonly known as the Community Development Block Grants. This has to go through the local municipality. They've been very helpful in getting this application in on time. It's really a pre-application, thank goodness, because we got the independent cost estimate on Thursday, and this application was due on Tuesday, so the following Tuesday. So we were able to get it in. We're looking for $600,000 to fill it. It now needs to go throughout the redevelopment board directors for their blessing, and then the final act is due next month. That's a grant. Yeah. Any questions on? Oh, one other thing, we did put it out to bid. We got one this month. So we're gonna have to beat the bushes and I think go outside of the Rutland area and try to secure a construction manager. The one that only did. So. Yeah, it's just a insufficient number. Again, illustrates the difficulty in securing skilled labor of any sort. Reported last month that the RFQ and legal services contract was awarded to Pratt, Rutland, Model and Reagan Curley, all names in that firm anymore. But we're just finalizing the contract itself and get that executed. Staffing update, we're still looking for a massage coordinator, although we have several leads and we'll be doing interviews shortly. What I'd like to do at this point is provide you with a testimony that was presented to the House Committee on Human Services and also the House Committee on General Housing and the Senate Committee on Economic Development. So if you could pull that up. The housing departments have been collaborating with the last several years in identifying what is happening in Vermont in terms of the Section 8 program. Eklund Burke from Vermont State Housing Authority sort of took the lead on this. I compiled all the data and did the analysis. And I also testified. Last 2 to 3 weeks. So I think the title page sort of says it all. Federally funded housing doctors the lifeline under Burke. We move on to the next slide. The this sort of tracks. Is that slide number 2?
Yep. Want me to keep going?
Different than mine. Probably because I have an older version of testimony. No, this is the last one.
This one's number 1. It's the right one, right?
That's the right one.
Okay.
Right slides.
Tracking this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Know how far it goes.
Nope, let's follow with the package. Funding shortfalls are certainly a new thing. As the presentation points out, back in the mid-90s, Congress shifted funding to an annual appropriations, which created enormous instability. You may recall that that was the situation with public housing as well. And that's why we converted to RAD Section 8. Well, on the whole, Section 8 in general is followed by the same trend, although in our case, we have a contract with probably, this day and age with a contract. I was to say, at least in this current environment, flow of subsidy through the RAD program continues. For several renewal funding shortfalls in the mid-2000s, and then again, most notably in 2013 and 17. Sequestration certainly did help the 10% reduction during sequestration. And there's those funds are not subsequently. You'll also see that there is inadequate inflation adjustments, particularly in light of the increased cost of market rate apartments out of the community. And part as a result of that, and part as a result of the funding instability, the lease up rates down. Of course, that impacts next year's funding. Next year's funding is based on this year's utilization. And ultimately, that's resulted in a persistent unmet need of the people who are eligible for Section 8, depending on the market. 1 in 4 have a voucher. At some locations, 1 in 6. Probably not. On the next page, page 3, you'll see the per unit cost, and this sort of speaks to the increased challenge of finding people use that fall within the payment standards. The per unit cost, in some cases, such as Fair Housing Authority, has been 39.88%. Here in Rutland, we're at 23.82. Statewide, the average per unit cost for Section 8 is $911.37. We're at $615.83. So that $911.37 includes very high market areas, so it's shifting down. Moving on to the summary page, you can see that the vouchers leased and the budget utilization is historically been a gap. And this pretty well sums it up. The calendar year 2025 funding cuts. Back in February, we saw this coming. March 2025 funding reductions were memorialized with the passage of the fiscal year 2025 continuing resolution, but of course, still a continuing resolution. We do not yet have a budget for 2025. The fiscal year ended a month ago. And on the next page, you'll see the impact of the calendar year funding reductions. And not surprisingly, Vermont State Housing Authority has the greatest shortfall of $630,000, followed by Burlington at $312,000, and we're at $49,143 for an estimated number of households 36, and the statewide half shortfall is 1,057,000 and change. That represents 940 families who, unless we get some relief from Washington, will conceivably be removed. So again, you know, as I said, the 12/35/25 estimated shortfall is over $1 million. Portion of that assistance payments for just November. Anything move forward. 943 households to cover the entire 2026 federal fiscal year. We are needed for 10 million. Now, some of that has been allocated already, but there's still a huge gap. What does this mean? The housing authorities around the state have determined that no families will be exited from the program at the end of this year. We'll utilize other resources in the form of our administrative what's called unrestricted net proceeds. But without a funding bill, we won't be able to sustain that through January 1st of 2026. And this gives you a sense, this next page gives you a sense of total vouchers under contract. Let's look at Rutland. We have 481 vouchers under contract. Vouchers eligible for funding that started in 2025 was 326. Unfunded vouchers, 92. Our agency cost per unit, 615.83. And again, the funding necessary to keep the program stabilized with 18 million, or 91180. Why is investment necessary? See on page 11 that this is not a new problem. Brought this to the attention of the state of Vermont back in 2013 as to the living crisis. And then moving on to the economic voucher reduction in Vermont for calendar year 2013, you'll see that there was a gap between total number of funds issued and total budget authority of approximately 12.9%, which in the case of Vermont totaled over $6 million. So that trend has continued again, less money, less families participate. So what we, some other impacts of this situation have systemically, the rapid rehousing programs transition people from homelessness into permanently subsidized housing has pretty much dried up because there's no medium-term rental assistance, which is what's funded the rapid rehousing efforts. And then even if there is medium-term rental assistance, sort of stuff because there are no vouchers available to move them into permanently affordable housing. So we're relying pretty much on our red PPP units, the Rutland Housing Authority, and we're relying on organizations like Cornerstone. People in to move people out of homelessness. I would remind you that the not only Hickory Street, the Cornerstone properties, Lytec properties, and the income requirements are much higher than our red, for example. And the reality is, in order to keep those units filled over at Cornerstone, they need Section 8 vouchers. Moving on to the project-based vouchers. Historically, project-based vouchers have allowed Lytec properties, Cornerstone, and even Hickory Street, the cash flow. They were dependent on the subsidies up front to get financing. It provides them with guaranteed income in order, as I said, to secure the development resources. And without those vouchers, it's difficult to say what's going to happen to affordable housing development down the road. Prior to us going into shortfall, we had obligated for our village and the property and another, and I believe, 4th Street. Those, frankly, project-based vouchers are a bit up in the air right now. So as you can see, there's immediate impact on all housers throughout the state. In 2026, very much up in the air. The government is shut down. I think we're on day 41. There is some movement, but be that as it may, they're still a ways from passing the calendar year 2026 budget, which is the 12-month period that Section 8 program runs off of. And again, it's based on congressional appropriation and that formula of prior year expenditures. The vouchers that have been taken out of circulation because of the lack of funding do not get renewed in 2026. Again, it's based on prior year's utilization, regardless of sufficient funding or not getting vouchers leased out. And again, to date, there's 1,233 vouchers that are unfunded, and without some intervention, that downward spiral will continue. The strategy for investing in housing choice voucher programs. As I said earlier, housing authorities are authorized to use unrestricted net proceeds, which are essentially administrative fees, to fund housing assistance payments. But that's just a very, very short-term solution. That'll get us through December of 2025 if necessary. The good news is that the good news is that if we supplement the funding utilizing those administrative reserves, they do count towards our renewal for 2026. So in other words, it brings our utilization up and will correspondingly increase our 2026 renewal. But again, that's not something that we can do indefinitely. We can only go through the December payments because those administrative fees support operations. So sort of funding vouchers, if we're to fund voucher, if we utilize all of our administrative fees, shut the doors. So what we are asking the state of Vermont to do is to provide renewal funding, and then it'll be based on our actual utilization, year-end utilization. So it'll be a swap. In other words, we'll front load the Section 8 Section 8 voucher payments, and the state will reimburse us in the form of transfers into our unrestricted net proceeds or administrative accounts. So our final plea, so to speak, was to those committees was to continue to advocate for restoration and expansion of federal funding, to support the state level solution that bridge the gap for Section 8 voucher holders, and to invest in public housing. So it's tough times out there, but we are hopeful that we can come to agreement with the state of Vermont on this temporary measure. Questions?
We accepted this.
They were very receptive, but of course they have financial constraints as much as everyone else. As you recall, they did invest in the supplemental nutrition assistance program, or what they call in Vermont, 3 squares of Vermont. That was a significant investment, but and they also were able to find some money, I think federal money, for the LIHEAP program, the heating assistance program, shelter, food, and in our case, fuel. Right? The 3 things that people rely most on. Payments. Moving on, unless there's any questions. The next page is the if you turn to the section on that's top of the page has a slash logo on it. These are finalized program requirements relating to staffing and panel utilization. Depending on the type of panel, there is a minimum expectation of number of participants. Site-based panel like Sheldon and Templewood have 100 participants. The community-based panels varies, I think it's between 80 and what is it, Carol?
For a community-based
Yeah.
panel is 70 to 80.
Yeah, 70, 80. The rationale there is because of travel time, for example, and the lack of a centralized location to deliver services. It takes more time and resources to serve those SASH participants out in the community. So I've asked Carol to provide us with an update on our panel visualization. That's in your report, but I'll ask her to highlight that just to give you a sense as to where we stand in relationship to these standards. Frankly, Carol has been covering, to the extent possible, the Sheldon and Template panel for SASH, so we're not at risk of losing the staffing dollars or having to utilize the considerably more expensive remote SASH coordination services that the Spur provides. And as I said earlier, we're recruiting for a new SASH coordinator so that Carol can do one job. And finally, to specific to next month's public hearing on RJ payment standards for, this would be the Section 8 payment standards for 2026. I provided you with our proposed payment standards for the first time in years, reflects the fair market rent, 20% of fair market rent. 106, which we've had to do in the past in order to make sure that we could align with apartments for folks. Under our payment standards, we cannot sustain because of the funding scenario, can't sustain payment standards that are in excess of fair market rents. In fact, we go into 2026 with some trepidation around even being able to sustain the 100% of fair market rent payment standard. As an example, I provided you with the Vermont State Housing Authority report on the state. And if you go down to the Rutland 0-bedroom or efficiency measures, you'll see that they're funding 97% of fair market rent. On the 1-bedrooms, also 97. On the 2 bedrooms, it's gone down to 93% of fair market. On the 3 bedrooms, 95, and on the 4 bedrooms, 98. So, with the exception of the 2 bedrooms, we're pretty close to the Vermont State Housing Authority standards. Again, they do not often lower their payment standards beyond the fair market rents, but in light of the financial chaos right now, they've made the decision that lowering their payment standards, which requires tenants to pay more rent, is a better option than pulling vouchers altogether. Ready for payment, so to speak. Unless there's any questions for me, Mr. Chairman, that's the end of my chairman report.
Thank you very much. Section 2, financial and reports.
Yeah, thank you. So as you guys know, we partner with CBIZ and they've been a big partner. That being said, we received our financials about a week and a half late, so they just came in, so we make sure that we include that in the email.
I did put them in the black folder, but I still got the variance report. So if there are any questions on that, we'll try to entertain them. But we have Sarah has provided them with a schedule of our board meetings so as to make sure that we're getting budget year to actuals to you in a timely manner. No big surprises except our cash flow continues to go down. And we're trying to identify specifically the source of that. As I've said before, I believe it's simply a delay in the transfer into operations of our administrative fees procedure. So that bounce back, but I want to make sure I'm getting.
The audit is still going on.
Audit is still going on. We're not quite sure what the holdup is. We provided them with all the information that they've requested, and they've requested, auditors being auditors, right, Kevin? They requested significantly more information, particularly around the limited partnerships at Hickory Street. And an attempt, I believe, to ensure that they are not instrumentalities of the housing authority, but indeed affiliates of the housing authority, particularly in the case of housing initiative. Indeed, our relationship to the three phases in Hickory Street don't even achieve the level of affiliate because they're separate for-profit. They're all separate for-profit entities.
Yeah.
Which we don't serve on the board for. We're simply the management agent. So hopefully by next month. Yep. And Sarah has done a nice job in providing you with an outline of the 2026 open enrollment benefits for staff, which includes health insurance, dental insurance, and for the first time, vision insurance. So for the W.
You get in here, so let me grab that.
It wasn't, it was a.
Okay. let me grab that.
This one, sir? I'll have a copy.
I don't believe any of these should change given the new circumstances this morning with the 8 Democrats that the changes to premiums. I think that mainly affects people that get in insurance. But overall, we're going to keep our plan as close to last year as possible. Given the cost changes in the state, we are not able to stay on the exact same plan, but we did find something as close to what we currently have. And so I have an outline here for everybody, but our annual premium increase as far as it relates to the board is 12%. And that was compared to 37% if we kept our current plan going into 2026. So we find that to be a huge cost savings and finding a very comparable plan. Dental insurance, again, doesn't change until April 1st, but I put an overview for everybody there. But nothing. Average total benefit cost per employee is $24,000, and again, given the state we are still under. Material for me to.
But just a couple of additions. For the first time, we will be offering employee-funded vision insurance for those who choose to take advantage of that. I did want to point out on the first page, and may have been a lack of communication on my part, but the HRA contribution under key plan details, that'll actually reflect the deductibles. So, or the out of pocket maximum. So that'll go up to $3,200 this year and $6,400 per family. Modest increase, but that was simply a part of the plan change. I will say that not probably, if this trend continues, we'll need to reopen contract negotiations, paying 30–40% increases.
That's what she does.
I think Sarah covered it, but if there's anything else you'd like to add.
Nope.
It does a great work. Other than their
On time.
getting reports to us in the timely manner, but I think Sarah's involved.
Occupancy.
No, I haven't released anybody up since the last board meeting, but I do have 2 that I will be reaching up this week. The 683 and 1004, you see the ready column over there. The once you see the ready columns for bridge housing, we're just waiting on mentor connector to make a decision on who they want to put in those units. A couple more just getting ready. Those are soon. We do have people for those as well. And we do have people lined up for all the ones in the pending ones, which are there's some evictions, possible evictions in there and things like that. So once those become ready, we will have those leased up quickly as well. Our numbers are down pretty good. We're under, I forget we said having mid-20s.
It's in Rutland.
Okay, for the amount of days from the time they are in possession until we lease them up again, it's down into the low to mid-20s, which is pretty good. So,
Well,
sure.
yeah. Pretty good as an understatement. Before Gretchen and Greg took over the company, Hickory Street in particular was some of those units had stayed empty for quite some time, thus impacting our turnover rates at Hickory Street, as well as some of our other sites. And as I tell people, and Greg now begins to quote me, empty units, empty pockets. So we can't afford A, to have units empty, and B, it's a disservice to our community to have units and, not filled. So when I say it's an understatement, Fran, who is our representative from Evernorth, specifically for the three phases of Hickory Street, has been quoted as saying that we have the lowest turnover rate of any of her properties in her portfolio. With like-that properties around the state. I want to reinforce that. We're getting units turned over faster than any of those properties statewide. So kudos to
Significantly too, none of them are under 30 days. Anybody under 30 in the state. That's pretty good.
so fabulous. Thank you again. I know you've heard that before, but it bears repeating.
Let's get down to that at that point.
I think Mr. Yeah, I was improved. The complexities, the complexities, the families that we're working with oftentimes make that turnover goal a lot more challenging. But I wanted to repeat that, and I also wanted to say that, again, from Fran, our Evernorth rep, she has consistently commented on the quality of our property in terms of maintenance and upkeep. So feel really good about what's going on with the occupancy property management. Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's all good. I appreciate that.
It's worth that.
And I did just, the only other thing I had in the report was, they did just get the compliance review report for phase 3. I had phase 1 already, but they're all good, no issues there. So, Spectrum was very happy with it. Just the entity that does file reviews for Evernorth that I upload stuff to. And then the wait lists are pretty much staying right about where they have been. A slight increase in the number of people on each wait list, but not too drastic, not too surprised. Yeah. Okay, this one.
The other item on the agenda, I know that you wrapped up the Section 8 quality control unit inspections last week with Springdale Health and Department. Do you have any initial report at this point?
There's one that we really want to check on. There's a potential egress issue. There's like nothing, no exit out of a basement. So kind of big problem. There's a fire. So kind of that one. But
It's a basement apartment.
It's a basement apartment and the cellar into an apartment. There's only one window above the sink down there, no doors. A little concerning there, so I can't figure that out. But
How many total inspections?
15.
15, and so one did not pass.
One, 2 did. There's another one that we are working on with the landlord. Apparently, not very good landlord. The walls are missing. Like all the sheetrock everything's gone, and the entrance way in. There's no lights in it. Clearly, like dropped ceiling tiles are falling out of it from a leaky roof. But there's a few things like that for that one. Yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Property manager.
So since writing this, some of this has gone away, so I've gotten rid to 2 of the 5 evictions. And then I've got a third one who voluntarily left on Friday before I have to go to a rep. Yeah. The guys have done 89 work orders and we've done all the parking permits for shelter. So coming up, I hope to get Templewood Court's parking permits done and then we'll move on the eviction, but I think a lot of
Yeah, we've, real challenges, particularly at, I think the stairs at Sheldon Towers. In fact, we're seeing a little bit of an exodus, from tenants who don't want to lease. We've had 2 or 3 very, very challenging tenants, I believe all of whom were under eviction. Sadly, did we, you know?
I'm not the official word on that one.
Yeah. We did have an overdose at Sheldon, and very sad situation. But I think it, you know, again, speaks to the real complexities around some of the folks that we serve.
Not that there's a positive outcome to any over, but it did differently. Working with them on doing some direct patrols that are random direct patrols in which they'll actually station an officer down there for 3 to 4 hours at a time. And mediate the people that are going in and out of the building and what's happening outside of the building. So
How often you guys check, to see if, other people are living in, aren't supposed to be there?
I would say it's ongoing, but it's
It's tough.
hard to prove, and the courts have been particularly problematic as of late. We have a new judge here in Rutland, and for the first time in my 25 years, the judge made the decision that she would not issue a pay rent into court order unless the tenant is present in court. So you can imagine what the end result of that is going to be. There has been
The tenant around the car.
no.
They don't show up.
Yeah, they don't show up and we don't get the rip, or we don't get the rent into court. I will say that there was another avenue that was pursued and that tenant has been evicted. That's deeply concerning, because it's a system, frankly, that is already stacked against landlords, whether it's a Rutland Housing Authority or, if I may, Jim Richards or Cornerstone or June Cola or what have you. So
You pick on the accountants.
and we pick on the accountant. No, the accountants are godson compared to the court. So I do want to, I mean, it is an extremely difficult job, lease compliance. And it's never easy to have to pursue the eviction card, but sometimes in the interest of protecting neighbors, we have to, take that route. And next month, I will ask Carol, Gretchen, Greg to present a positive outcome that they've worked with, because there are many of them. I just want to remind the board that you've heard me say before that, 20-80 rule, 20% of your tenants has 80% of your problems. But it's that other 80% that we need to focus on for next month. So if you could plan to come with the story.
One positive thing, and having a barbecue on Thursday at Sheldon and brunch here on Friday, if any of you board members. Free food.
Those dates are on your, I believe they're on your activities calendar. Work package. Thank you, we have no action items. You're good.
We're not blocking out. You picked on me once, that's good.
I'm kidding, I don't know if
Elevator thing.
We had a conversation, during the executive.
So I have an update from Friday afternoon. Friday.
Hey, go ahead.
Apparently, because the elevator is very old, they got all the parts, but now they need to write the software to make it go to work. You're working on writing the software.
The saga keeps
I
going
can't
on.
make it up, but it's safe about. Yeah.
I can't take it.
Sorry, it was like 6 o'clock at night when I talked to them and I didn't think it was worth calling.
What's that old Jackie, the old hunting medicine? And the Zoom needles, the beetles and pins, happy man, grins. Yeah, they, that's particularly disappointing in that they knew that.
Yeah.
They knew that. So, at any rate,
They don't make sure you do that.
yeah, I knew that, and I don't even, I'm not an elevator technician, but, Kevin and I had a conversation, and at this point, I just assumed table that for an executive session discussion.
And we have Section 8.
Okay, so, not a whole lot going on for obvious reasons, we can talk about it already. I did have one person who had a voucher, that was searching. She has since this report, located housing, so we were able to put that back in as of, I think actually it will be as of December 1. I haven't leased up anybody new. And that's pretty much it. I'm working on January as much as I can, working on the January research that people have returned. We've got to get the PHA web system updated with the new deduction amounts and that sort of thing before I can finalize that stuff. Kevin, do you want to talk about the rent increase letter, Kevin, that we were working on?
Rent increase?
Yeah, not allowing.
Question, proposed a letter.
Would be Heather.
Heather, Gretchen, no, Gretchen had nothing to do with it.
That's right.
Heather proposed a letter, and just informing landlords who are seeking a rent increases that we need to postpone those until after the government reopens.
Yeah.
Indeed, we did that with Cornerstone. In place properties and this, just to get through this storm. The reality is, we want money to give them anyway.
Yeah. Vacancy payments, we only had one this past month, and Gretchen has been awesome about keeping those up to date with me. I mean, the rule technically says if it's over 60 days that I should not be accepting them, and I had to do that. I had to say, nope, not doing it with the housing authority. I have had to say that to Cornerstone because they delay getting paperwork to me at a time manner. So included also here is the EIB discrepancy report. I am on top of this as much as I can be. With the government shutdown, there's certain parts of the report that I can't. But this would be as of the end of October. Everything is up to date. People, not that good, are really good about replying when I have to send them, I'm going to pull your voucher letter because you didn't respond and you owe money. And so we have a number of people in active repayment agreements for overpaid. I was able to pull for the new month for November, able to pull the new hire report, the death, the death report and that kind of stuff. It's the IBT report that I is down right now because of the government being shut down. But that's all up to date and staying on top of those as much as possible. I think that is.
Got a question.
Sure.
Notice there's a lot of, showing powers that Vermont pest control. It's good. It's good for you.
Right now, there's only one unit at Shelton that has positive 5 bed bugs. And we're no longer preventatively treating, we're only doing monthly inspections. We've done it for the last 3 months and we haven't had any issues. The one tenant that we have active is a trouble from the so we've actually reached out to his guardian. So far, just the inspection. It's much cheaper and it's less aggravation to the tenant.
More prevention.
And they're doing it every month instead of every 3 months.
We use any equipment, we buy, it's fine.
Actually, we did Friday too here at Tumblewood. One of the residents reached out to us and was getting a new bed for Rana Center. And she was, so we actively, we proactively treated her bed before we moved in.
Is that something we did say no to? Something could be put into like, to not fail to rent, there's like a rent center.
Well, again, we should probably talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, just from the section 8 point of view, I have many landlords who have that as a clause in their lease because they are the largest purveyor of bed bugs in Rutland.
Wow.
Because so like if you buy a brand new piece of equipment, you know, like a washer, dryer, television, not just beds or furniture, they will go in there. So even if it's brand new, they don't have trucks for just new products and trucks for repoing stuff. So they get intermingled. So even the new stuff could be in, yes.
Never playing. So is that right?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Resident service?
Good morning. So let's see, this Wednesday, I have my implementation managers, meeting in Barry, down the street. Gretchen and Greg and I attended the Vermont Housing Managers Association Conference on the 23rd, 24th to JP. And Kevin mentioned Temple Court, Sheldon Tower still is in need of a service coordinator, coordinator. We have the this week, so that's exciting. But I did get notification that National Church Residents SASH coordinator is giving notice, so she will be done this coming Thursday. So we will have an open position.
Sorry.
I said we have
National Church residents. Oh,
National Church.
that's a shame.
She was good, yeah, but I also understand that they're going to be losing their property manager as well. I think she's going to be getting done in January. So big change over
She's been
there.
there a long time.
Good thing though is it sounded like they do have a prospective person for their position, so that's good. What else do we have here? In terms of SASH compliance, we all have HIPAA training that is required. Some new response to that is folks are going to be shut off from the system, our family care system, if they are not in compliance within 10 days of receiving an email. So,
Does that mean I have to take?
I think that, yes, you
Okay.
as well, Kevin, and Sarah. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So just good to know, you know, they basically want the funders to know that we're all trained and then they'll probably. So then Kevin wanted me to mention real quick, we were looking at which, what's it? So, so looking at some of the policy and expectations in the big square, we read through it just real quick. One piece is that they provide you with the amount that is allowed for a full panel. And those numbers, which I just to let you know, between the time you cover your coordinator and your nurse, there's not much left over to other costs.
What is the panel size versus panel expectations? That's
So panel size,
how many are we currently servicing each of our panels?
oh, right, so.
What the expectation is.
Right, so, if you go to page 72 and you look at the enrollment, chart that I gave you, they basically want us to adhere to the minimum enrollment. So you've got the minimum and maximum. And so what I can see, there's only 2 panels, the Brandon panel, which is through the Cornerstone, which is in need of 3 participants to reach the minimum amount of folks in a panel. And then the other is the Cornerstone, again, half panel, which is needs 3 participants to meet the minimum amount of participants in a panel. We are all pretty much at that, just meeting it, and I would like to say, just to toot my own horn, I have brought our panel numbers up to at least the minimum.
Minimum for a site-based program?
80 to 100. I think problem for my panel is that we have a lot of folks that are on Medicaid, and we are limited to, I think it's like 7% Medicaid folks up to 7%. So, and I think we're already at that. So that makes a little. And then there's also the ebb and flow, people coming. They are choosing not to rejoin SASH, so that makes it a little bit difficult. But Colleen has done a great job getting her panel. Stephanie community panel, she has brought her numbers up since January. It's worked really hard at that. Part of that was we have reached out to the Maples. We've done a couple of programming, this is there, so we have a lot of things. And then in terms of the other compliance, they're looking at 80% completion rate for use of disclosures. Again, if you go to where's our use of disclosure? Under the use of disclosures, the percentage up to date, we're all in 90s and above, so that's across the board for housing those panels in our units. So that's good. And then they also look at our SASH coordinator assessments and our nursing assessments, and if you go down to under the SASH coordinator piece, we have the Cornerstone Brandon panel is 76%, it's a little shy of 80%. All the rest of the panels are where they should be. And then in terms of the nursing assessments, the Housing Trust Cornerstone half panel is at 59%, should be 80%. So overall, we're not doing too badly. So, is any questions or concerns?
A couple of comments. Getting back to the SASH program, the original program was, and it continues to be a Medicare funded initiative with the expectation that participants beyond Medicare is a prerequisite program. We have had a significant influx of non-elderly disabled recoveries, which has resulted in a big increase percentage-wise of the Medicaid population. Now we have, in addition to SASH, we have a resident service program, so that It's not as though we're not. We continue to work with the non-elderly, non-Medicare population, but as far as achieving the panel size, it's become an increasing challenge. I would also remind you that when SAC started, it was intended to be a population-based model. In other words, it was to serve the full continuum of elders on Medicare. What has very much happened over the years is that because there's so many crises within the population that we're serving, it's become more of a, we're seeing fewer and fewer people who aren't who don't have chronic illness or don't have needs that sort of they don't have low needs. So we are, focusing, as I said, on crisis situations, which means there's a decided lack of balance. And it's deciding that, it's increasingly complicated in terms of serving folks. Because we're seeing them with a lot of needs.
Other complexity, but it's across the board. I mean, it's not just
And just one final thing under resident services, I wanted to bring to your attention that coming up on Thursday, November 15th, this week, there's a harvest dinner at Fountain Towers at 4:30. And then the next day, there's a harvest lunch here at Temple Court at 10:30. Again, you're welcome to attend. Any questions?
Old pork and mac and cheese.
I'm telling you, the food alone is worth the trip. That's Mr. Chairman.
Any old business? We need to go ahead.
Let's say very briefly, I was only going to leave the room. We'll just discontinue the recording of the meeting.
Move into executive session, motion,
Second.
all in favor? Down in executive session, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And staff this day, this is a general update that although we didn't want. We're good.